Although I was never a big superhero girl, I always had a soft spot for Miles Morales. He's my favorite Spider-Man. I find him a more interesting and likable character than the various iterations of Peter Parker. This sentiment extends to their respective games. Spider-Man, Miles Morales is an excellent mini-sequel to Insomniac's 2018 webcast effort. In Rick Lane's Spider-Man review, he wrote that it was a good port of a pretty good game. The bad news is that the PC port of Miles Morales is still only pretty good. The good news is that it's one of the best games out there. Miles Morales is a simpler experience than its predecessor. There may be less to do, but almost everything is done in a way that benefits Miles and New York. Much of the bloat has been removed, there are fewer side quests that can be distracting, and the story is much shorter than its predecessor. It's a perfect opportunity for a tighter, more intense plot, and Miles Morales delivers. Things start with a brief summary that updates me on Miles. The narrative focus splits between the teenager balancing his family life, especially after his father's death in the previous game, and fulfilling his new Spidey duties while the AUG takes a cheeky winter vacation. Routine web shenanigans lead Miles into a serious confrontation between the Roxxon Corporation and the Underground, a high-tech criminal gang led by the Tinkerer. It has its fair share of superhero-level predictability in its various twists, but the game does a great job of fleshing out its cast and bringing an emotional charge to those predictable moments that offer some forgiveness. Go for Miles. A more compelling story is no doubt helped by the fact that Insomniac managed to make him even cooler as Spider-Man than before. It may be a snowy recreation of Peter Parker's New York, but the developer has tweaked its near-perfect web sling to feel even more satisfying. This time I have more control over the course of walls and the direction around buildings. By default, I traversed through the controller, but booted the keyboard and found that the port's developer, Nix's, translated inputs surprisingly well. It took a bit of getting used to, but ultimately it felt as intuitive as using a DualSense. Taking down bad guys is largely the same between the two Spideys, but Miles gets a few key additions that set him apart. His Venom abilities shake up the fight a bit, allowing Miles to deal shock damage to enemies. The jabs feel heavy and have a nice punchy pickup to make fights feel more dynamic. Overall, however, the basic moveset remains the same. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but those looking for drastic evolutions to combat may be disappointed. Stealth missions are still plentiful and require Miles to balance delicately on posts and beams while silently trapping enemies out of sight. They've never been my favorite, and I'm usually tired of repeatedly scanning each enemy to see if they're safe from a stealthy takedown. Countless times I've given up and leapt into battle, feeling much more comfortable taking down a whole bunch of underground goons with my Venom Smash. With Miles Morales moving to PC from PlayStation 5, the game is already a graphical feast. For the most part, the gate looks just as stunning, if not better. I had some aliasing issues, especially during cutscenes. There were also a few graphical glitches during my few hours in New York, like textures not loading correctly and Miles missing entirely during the loading screen, leaving an erratic, uneven mesh. I also had an absolute mare with frame drops and drops. My rig didn't work very well with the ray tracing options, and even when it was disabled I found annoying frame rate issues during combat and traversal. It also crashed me several times, which isn't too much of a problem gameplay-wise thanks to the autosave. But it started to get a bit frustrating to launch the game multiple times in one night. On the plus side, there are plenty of graphics options to tinker with. Reducing traffic density and turning off ray tracing allowed me to play at high settings with relatively little stuttering aside from the crashing issue. I still recommend playing Insomniac's first Spider-Man simply because it complements the story power of this game. But for those who just want to kick winter New York around, zip past skyscrapers at breakneck speed, and kick badass butts, Miles Morales should be your one and only Spider-Man. This is by far the hero's best adventure yet, and it won't take much time either. Our rating is 4 out of 5. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and support my channel.